Hey, good morning, YouTubers. I'm gonna get going here. I'm gonna ramble as usual and tie a C-Run Cutthroat 5 with a composite loop. So let's zoom in and see what happens. You never know when it's unscripted. So there we go. What I'm going to try to do here is a fly similar to this. I'm tying this for C-Run Cutthroat, but Lord knows you could use this for all sorts of fish, including steelhead. This is tied on a size 6, 3761. I'm going to go now to a size 10. It's interesting. When I fished C-Runs back in the 70s, the size 6 was my go-to fly. However, I was mostly tying up, or mostly fishing up in the river above the head of tide. And I don't think those fish are feeding. So you're looking more for an attractor style fly. And the other thing is I'm finding that, back in the 70s when we caught C-Runs, a fair number of them went right in the frying pan. So I want this tail to be kind of bushy and not too long, so I'm gonna yank off some of the tips there. Some people like to just break it off real clean. I don't. Or sometimes I do. Anyway, we used to put them right in the frying pan. And we a good day would be a limit of, gosh, what was the limit in the 70s? It might have been 10. At some point they went to 5. Then they went to 2. Okay, I need some dubbing. And I have some, it's kind of an olive. It's got some diamond bright in there. It's got some brown. Where the heck was it? I'm gonna have to tie several flies to get any kind of rambling in here. Oh yeah, hook size. So now I find I'm more likely to fish 8s and 10s. And part of the reason, real significant part of the reason, is I'm concerned with injuring fish. A size 6 hook would not seem at all excessive for trout. But when your fish are averaging, you catch a lot of 12 inchers, you catch them down to 7 inches, those are the pre-migrants. So your unusual fish, maybe you get into a batch of fish and they're averaging, or I should say running, 12 to 14. Those fish are going to respond fairly well to a size 6. But I'll tell you more about this composite loop next time around. I'm sorry, I'm not saying this very well. The point is, with a size 6 hook, you are going to hurt a lot more of your fish. You really are. And it's not because your hooks, I am religiously fishing barbless hooks for C-Runs. And all this time, what I'm doing is I'm just putting some material together for a composite loop. A size 6 hook is going to eye hook a lot of your fish. Come on, Gracie, move on. It just is. That hook will turn upwards and the fish will be impaled. You'll get them deep in a gill arch. You'll get them in a gill raker. So a size 6 hook is just much harder on your fish. And sea runs are capable of making multiple migrations if they don't get eaten by cormorants and harbor seals, which I think is often the case. So there aren't a lot of them in these streams. I think we've got some rivers that, smaller streams may have a run of 100 fish. On larger streams, maybe it's 1,000. I don't know. But they're not super abundant. And every fish counts. And as anglers, we really want those fish to survive our shenanigans, and we want them to survive spawning and come back at a larger size. They're on their first migration, they're really they'll go to sea at maybe 10 inches, and they'll come back at 12 or 13. Then they spend the winter in the river, and if they make it back again, so they're 12 to 13. Next time they're 14 or 15. Next time they're 16 or 17. It's kind of like half pounders. And if they make it, wow, I think all my fibers are on top. How did that happen? Oh well, let's go with it. Point is, it's going to take, if you want to get a 19-inch cutthroat, that fish is probably going to have made at least 3 spawning migrations. And we don't want to interrupt that potential cycle by eye hooking a fish or gill plate hooking a fish. We just don't want to do it. So where's my dubbing brush? Here it is, right in front of me. So the whole deal is a 6 or an 8 or a 10 is going to be far more fish friendly. This didn't work out at all. That might work, but I don't know. Nah. If I really wanted to fly with fibers that long, I would have tied one. So what am I going to do? This is going to go in my experimental bin. I'm going to trim it off. This might be one of those flies I give to my friends, and they come back and say, wow, that fly caught so many fish. Okay, I'm gonna try it again. So, yeah, and this happens when I'm fishing for salmon. I may be using a size 6 hook on a clouser fishing for Chinook, and if there are so I don't catch that many cutthroat on that fly, but if they have just stocked hatchery smolts in the estuary, oh man, some evenings using a small clouser, you may hook a dozen of these juvenile Chinook, and they run about, how big do they run? They're about, how big? You can't see. I'm looking at my fingers. 5 inches. And a lot of those fish are hooked up through the eye. And that really makes me unhappy. Now, every smolt doesn't turn into an adult. There's a lot of mortality along the way. But if you hook 10 or 12 smolts on an evening and you kill a third of them, doesn't take very long before you're cutting into the number of fish coming back that you could catch at 8, 10, 12, 16, 20 pounds. So it's worth, and every one of those adults that comes back is precious. Every one. Because they don't all bite, and we need a lot of fish coming back in order to get any biters. So blah blah blah. Just consider the effect of the hook on, I'll call it the bycatch, on these smaller trout that we're catching. Smaller trout and juvenile salmon, juvenile steelhead. We just don't want to be messing them up. It's just because a hook's barbless doesn't mean it's going to be harmless. But we also want to use a barbless hook. And it occurs to me that I don't know what I'm going to do with this video because you can't see what I'm doing most of the time. And how boring is that going to be? So my last attempt at this fly was a total failure, partly because my Senyo's predator wrap was way too long, and partly because it all came out on one side of the fly, on the top side, which would have made an okay wing, but I want to have this material spread around my fly so that it's more like a hackle. So I've got little feely, feathery, fibery, wispy things all around the hook. So I'm spreading these out horizontal. I'm going to trim this side off. And now I'm going to spin it up. I'm going to go to the gym here in a few minutes and get my morning walk in. I haven't been very good about doing that lately. And I can't find my dubbing brush, so I'm going to use a different one. Very gently. Haven't been as good about my walks. And I tell you, when you're 70 and you spend too much time behind the computer editing, or sitting here tying flies, or taking a nap with the cats, and then you do go out fishing, it's kind of hard. If you don't get that movement every day. You know, if I'm in my fishing groove and I'm fishing 5-6 days a week, you can get in better shape for fishing. Come on. But when you've been at home not fishing, you're kind of behind the 8 ball on your stamina. least I find I am. Now I'm doing a whole bunch of, I was crowding the front of the fly. I'm kind of jamming that all in there behind that bead. So since I didn't wrap this around my thread, I'm going to cut this with a little bit sticking up above the bead. You're never going to see it. Looks like I could have jammed even more in there. So this is coming out a whole lot better than my first attempt. Now remember, this is my main target species here is sea run cutthroat. It's a wet fly, marabou tail. I'm using a composite hackle. And I really do want to find my dubbing brush. I've got to, oh, goodness gracious, it was just right in front of me. Okay, I've got my hackles all spread around the hook shank. Am I going to shorten a few? Yeah, I don't think so. Sometimes I do. So I'm pretty happy with the way this came out. Now this is an 8. I want to see if I can scale these down to do a nice 10. So I'm really happy with this fly. It's going to give me some motion. It's got some sparkle in it. A wispy marabou tail. Okay, I'm going to cut this off now and go take a walk, and maybe I'll come back and try a size 10. Okay, intermission.